The Altneuschul, or Old New Synagogue of Prague, is a culturally unique building. Currently believed to be the oldest synagogue in the world to be still used as an active synagogue, it is the oldest remaining synagogue that exists in the Czech Republic. The city of Prague is home to one of the longest established Jewish communities in Europe. The first definitive proof of this comes from 1091, but it is believed that the Jewish presence in Prague may have dated back to the late Roman period. From its early days, the community in Prague was home to both German and Persian Jews who migrated at similar times. After much of the existing Jewish settlement was destroyed in a fire in 1142, the Jewish population would settle in what was to become Yosefos, the Jewish quarter, where the Altneuschul was the second synagogue to be built. Already extant was the aptly named Old Synagogue, or Altschul, the first synagogue to be built in Yosefos, sadly no longer surviving. Originally known as the New Synagogue, the main body and prayer hall of the Altneuschul was constructed at some point in the late 13th century, estimated to be around the year 1270. However, some parts of the building may theoretically be older than the general time estimate, namely the southern annex, which contemporary scholars believe may have been a smaller, remodeled synagogue from the 1230s to 40s. Following the construction of another newer synagogue, the new synagogue would become the Old New Synagogue, the name by which it is known today. Typically in religious architecture, you see instantly recognizable core design features which indicate the building's purpose. Many mosques are instantly recognizable by their minaret and central dome. The steeple and cruciform design of many churches define them against their landscape. However, as a vastly dispersed minority, a similar cohesion of design and style is not so evident within medieval Jewish architecture. It is difficult to build up a cohesive idea of medieval Jewish architecture, firstly as so few examples have survived till the present day, consequence of a long history of violent anti-Semitism prevalent within the European world. However, within the examples which we do find, medieval synagogues tend toward adopting the trends and styles of local religious architecture. One prominent example, the Ben Ezra Synagogue in Cairo, was originally a church, bought by the local Jewish community in 882 AD. In form with this, the design of the Altneuschul was carried out by Christian architects. It utilises the Gothic style in its construction, a style already well established amongst the churches of Prague. Mainstays of Christian Gothic architecture, such as high pointed archways with ribbed vaults, can be found in the shul. Each vault features 5 ribs rather than 4, which some have attributed to a desired distinction from Christian symbolism, but could equally have been chosen to give the building greater stability. Some features of Gothic construction do not appear, however. While some buttresses are used in its construction, little of the high, ornate exterior construction and classic flying buttresses are used in the design, and the building is well supported by its wide base. This suggests that an increased focus on the shul's stability and steadiness may have been made, with Gothic churches on the whole holding a reputation for collapsing. And this may have been because, like other religious buildings, synagogues would have been used as a refuge for the community against violent attack. The same reason for which the 16th century Polish and Lithuanian fortress synagogues were constructed. The building's windows are small, possibly for a similar reason. It is for this unique simplicity that the building's west-facing decoration stands out, with some observers comparing its appearance to that of a flame. Equally, while adherence to other religions' styles of architecture was necessitated by the exclusion of Jews from the irrelevant guilds, as well as historical lack of choice around where their religious practices could be performed, there is perhaps a greater focus on interiority in the synagogue construction. The classic sculptural ornamentation has been modified without depictions of humans or animals in accordance to traditions of depiction at the time. The floor plan of the interior is in no way reminiscent of a church, featuring no side aisles or chapels, and 2 rather than 1 nave. The design features a central bema, a lower platform angled off, from which readings from the Torah would be performed, and the scrolls would be kept. Around this, seats and desks were arranged for study. Despite the small windows, light was an important part of the building, necessary for the reading and writing undertaken within the premises. Lighting was provided by candles and hanging lamps, and while the current hanging lamps are post-medieval, candle holders still line the steps up to the Torah ark. The Altneuschul is located at the centre of the Jewish quarter in Prague. Despite their long history within the region, the establishment of a Jewish population in Prague was by no means uncontested. Though initially enjoying free and favourable conditions, the First Crusade in 1096 would signify the end of this, marking the first pogrom of Prague as it passed through. The lives of the Jews of Prague would continue to suffer intermittent periods of violence and degradation. The burning of much of the west bank of the river Moldau in 1142 would lead to the formation of Yosefov, giving the Jewish presence in Prague a definite border, and would allow for the building of walls and imposition of a ghetto in the 13th century. This would not be the end of anti-Semitic persecution in medieval Prague, and after incidents of blood libel made by the Catholic clergy on Easter 1389, mobs ransacked, pillaged and burnt the Jewish quarter, killing over 3,000 people, very close to the entire Jewish population of Prague, and many of the survivors converted. Despite this, both the Altneuschul and Jewish life in Prague continued, where an elegy to the dead is read every year to commemorate them, written by Rabbi Avigdor Kara, one of the survivors. Despite episodes of persecution and severe restrictions upon the trades available to the Jews, Prague would continue to be a hub of Jewish culture and life in Bohemia. As was often the case in medieval Europe due to religious fears of usury, banking and money lending was primarily the jurisdiction of the Jews. Exemplified by the prevalence of desks in the synagogue, the local Jewish population was largely literate, to a far greater extent than the Christian population of the time, as the ability to read and write was a core part of worship. As such, the Altneuschul would have been the centre of education for much of the medieval Jewish community in Prague. Many of the written texts originating from medieval Prague were pieces of Jewish scholarship, and the city was considered a hub of halachic writing. The storied history of the Jewish people of Prague, and in its turn the Altneuschul, continues to this day. The attic of the synagogue is the folkloric location where Rabbi Yehuda Leib ben Belzal would bring to life a golem, a creature made of clay, bound to protect the Jewish people of Prague, and then later lay it to rest. During the Nazi occupation, the Altneuschul was preserved as the city's Jews were routinely massacred, intended by Nazi high command to serve as a museum to a vanished people, once the population had been fully eradicated. Despite this, the synagogue is still in use today for religious worship, its sturdy construction a testament to the survival of the Jewish people.